everybody. Welcome to the 75th Anniversary Appreciation of Moomin panel here for San Diego Comic-Con.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And I want to say that it's a privilege to be here. So I'm Marika Makaroff. I'm the CEO of Gutsy Animation and also creative director of the new Moomin Valley TV series.
My name is Riika Kuittenen. I'm the curator at the Moomin Museum. We are in Tampere, Finland. So it's about 2 hours from Helsinki, the capital. And the Moomin Museum ended up here because Tove Jansson donated her archive in the 1980s to the local art museum here. And our current museum opened in 2017, so it's quite new. But we were sort of in different locations in Tampere beforehand. And we, so the museum is very kind of immersive, and our museum collection is based on the Tove Jansson illustrations. So it's all the original book illustrations for the Moomin books. And we also own some of the cartoons and then various things like some of Tove's paintings and illustration work for other books. Like she did really wonderful Alice in Wonderland, I think in the 60s. And then she did a version of the first Hobbit book, Tolkien illustrations. So we have those as well. And then there's kind of various other work that we own as well. So, but the core of the museum display, so if you come and visit, it tells the story of the Moomin books in chronological order. And we also have these wonderful 3D tableau that Tove and Tuulikki, her partner, built together. So there's sort of 3D sort of scenes from the books. So they're sort of usually about that big and with little tiny characters and lots of wonderful detail. And it's all kind of lovely handmade. And one of our sort of collection crown jewels is the Moomin house that they built, and that's like 2 meters tall. And lots of levels, and it's got working lighting, and it's just like so much detail. I'll never be bored looking at it because it's amazing.
Yeah, it looks like a miniature dollhouse. I believe I have photos of it online. Yeah, it's very beautiful and very detailed.
Yes, it's amazing. I mean, there's kind of, logs in the fireplace, and there's little pots and pans in the kitchen, and there's curtains in the windows. I mean, it's just wonderful. And they did it all in their free time. So they weren't kind of necessarily forced to do any of this, but it was just their hobby.
My name is Sirke Happonen, and I work at the University of Helsinki, and I've been involved with the work of Jansson and the Moomins for quite many years. I published my doctoral thesis on the original work of Jansson, her Moomin texts and illustrations, and from that on I've been involved with writing books about the Moomins and Jansson, and articles and seminars and lots of different kinds of artistic projects, theatre, dance performances, and exhibitions and translating and so on. Thanks. It's great to be here.
What is it about her characters that it's been so popular around the world and able to last 75 years?
There are so many answers to that. One is definitely that they are so open, the stories. And the characters are such universal allegories of ourselves and our friends, our relatives, our neighbors, that we can recognize ourselves, we can recognize each other. And there is this kind of huge tolerance, I think, above the stories, that everybody is accepted, that it's kind of a wonderful thing to have these personalities. Sometimes so irritating personalities, sometimes tragicomic, sometimes just so warm-hearted and wonderful, like the Moomin Mama. But whoever you are, you're okay. and I think that's the kind of a feeling that it's very comforting in the story. There are adventures, of course. There are adventures outside of the Moomin Valley, the idyllic, beautiful Moomin Valley. But there are adventures also inside of ourselves, inside of the characters. So it's so multidimensional.
Well, I think she was really modern in her outlook, in her life, and I think that really translates into the books, because their way of life is really kind of recognizable to us, even though there are no human beings in the Moomin Valley. There's something that we can really aspire to, like the way they live. They respect their environment, so really kind of ahead of their time in a way that they live in a kind of in respect and in harmony with the environment, and also kind of this sort of equality and diversity that they have. They all kind of respect each other. They're all very different. They're different types of families. There's kind of non-gender specific characters, and there's kind of things that we can now really relate to in the kind of conversations that are going on now. So I think that's something that people always kind of pick out and kind of identify with. And the kind of, I don't know, acceptance and love that they have kind of for everyone. There's sort of, it's not a society where there's kind of up and down kind of different sort of classes or levels. They're all equal. So I think that's something that people really, aspire to.
I think that she was really rebellious, and she could see kind of the universal topics. So I give you one example. We are now working on the third season of Moomin Valley, and I wanted to pick the first episode to kind of be based on the comic strip Moomins Begin a New Life. And there is two prophets where the prophets are saying that you should live your life like this, or you should live your life totally the other way. And I think that these stories, and this was wrote in 1956, and in these kind of political sense, I can see that this is so accurate and contemporary also, and working as a story also nowadays. Of course, we are doing adaptation of that original story, but I think that that's something that she could see the topics that would touch universally around the world. And the other thing that I think it's quite funny that she didn't over-explain the stories or the characters. So what I mean about that is that I think that everybody can interpret the stories as they want. So Tove leaves some kind of a part of the viewers or the reader's imagination. How do you interpret this? How do you see this story twist or whatever? And I think that is one of the most essential things why they are so popular. And then there's the last thing that I really love, is that the characters itself, they are so authentic. So when we started the work, I'm really kind of big fan of kind of psychological things and everything. So we went through a psychological analysis of each and every character. And you really feel like the Filionk is always the kind of annoying neighbor that we all have, or Moomin Troll is the young idealistic guy that young women or young men want to be when they are like 17, 18 or something like that. So we really know these characters and they feel close to us.
Right now we're at the 75th. Where do you see not only Moomin Valley, but also the Moomin franchise 25 years from now, which will be the 100th anniversary? Where do you see the future?
I think that Moomin, the whole kind of the characters and the stories that they tell is about kindness and love. And I do believe that people who are buying these franchising or merchandising items, they also show their attitude. It's about tolerance. If you wear a Little My t-shirt, it shows that I'm for tolerance, I'm for the kindness and love in the world. I believe that we have more in common than things that differentiate us. So that's why I think that Moomin will come even bigger. And by the way, I'm sure that it will be launched in the TV series also in US in the near future. So you will have it.
Oh, yay! Okay.
So hopefully so. And that means that we will have even more new fans coming to our way. And it doesn't mean only TV series. I hope that people can find through the TV series or through Tove Jansson's other work or whatever, their way back to the Moomin books and Moomin comic strips. So it's a kind of bigger world out there than just the TV series.
I think we'll probably have more film, because I think the films seem to be super popular and they're kind of making, so we don't own any of the copyright, so Moomin Characters, the corporation, they kind of do the franchising. So kind of, I would imagine that we would see Moomins more popular in the States, because I think our market's still quite small in the US and Canada. And I think the Chinese are getting more interested in the Moomins. So it's going to be more global. And I'd imagine for the same reasons we already talked about, that the universal values within the Moomin philosophy. So it has such a wide appeal.
Yeah.
So I can just only see it getting bigger as a phenomenon.
Yeah, I would love to see Moomins be a little bit more popular in North America, like you said, in America and in Canada.
I would like to see is that we have more and more people in this world who have read the original work of Tove Jansson, her original books and comics, and learned them while spending a lot of time with them, not just in a rush, but just kind of slowly reading them, enjoying them, and being slow with reading. So that we would have people in this world who kind of know this world and know how things can go well, because they go well in the Moomin world. It's like a possible utopia. It's a possible world. It's not too far away from our world.
Yeah.
So I would. That's what I would like to see after all these years, that people would know the stories.
Did you set out knowing that you would be part of the 75th anniversary, or were you more concentrated on what was happening then?
Well, for us, it has been always a long-term plan. So it's not just that we do this, one series. We thought about the future itself. And when we started this journey together with Moomin Characters, for me, I think this is for the future. It doesn't mean that in the future there won't be coming any new TV series or whatever. But it means that this is for the long run. And that's why we have set up the kind of milestones ahead of us also, that what is our plan in the future, what we want to do together, how to kind of modernize the stories that Tove did early on in the 50s or 60s or 70s, and how to make it so that we also get new fans for Moomins. So that was our intention early on.
What is it about Moomins that you feel like really attracts to the Japanese culture and the Japanese people?
Well, I've tried to ask some texts of mine, and one book has been translated into Japanese.
Yeah.
So I've tried to ask Japanese readers and Japanese Moomin fans and seminars and so on, what would that be? So I'm just answering from that point. Mm-hmm. And they seem to be individual answers, but certain things come up, I think. One is, I think, the dichotomy between good and bad. That doesn't really exist in Moomin books and comics. So the stories are not about good, the fight between good and bad.
Right.
The narrative comes from other areas, and that's perhaps one thing. Mm-hmm. And then there is the Japanese people, like Finns and many Scandinavians, have believed in little kinds of creatures living in the forest, like trolls and other types of creatures that some think, are they real or are they not real? And like this, it's natural to kind of have that kind of world and that kind of parallel world with us. One could be the love for nature and the depiction of environment, the kind of aesthetics, the plain aesthetics when describing, illustrating the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things, and of course, yeah, what I've heard many times, that they are kawaii, they're cute. They are just cute. They're so cute. So even that.
I think that what is really kind of interesting, that the awareness of the Moomin brand or Moomins in Japan is 98%. So it's 1% more, even higher than in Finland, in Moomin's kind of homeland. And the biggest fans are 25 to 45-year-old women. And when I have been asking and talking with the fans, what they love about it is the kindness and the sweetness, of course, but also the independence of, for example, the small little girl like Little Mai, who is really fierce and shows a different model of a girl. And people really love Little Mai, Moomin Troll, and Snufking there. And I think that it shows that, and why women? I think that it resonates just, and people who are studying more about Moomin study more about Tove Jansson herself. And I think that Tove Jansson's story is an empowering story for everyone, not only women, but for men too. So that's why Japan, I think that they feel really, they have their heart for Moomins.
Yes. When I was there, they have restaurants, cafes. They currently have a theme park.
Yes.
And so I know they love it, like at the same level they love Disney. It's incredible over there.
I think there's kind of wider similarities in Finnish and Japanese life philosophy in a way. So I think that's probably what people pick. I mean, things like finding kind of comfort in nature, like walking in the woods or looking at the sea or that kind of thing, or also kind of simplicity, like aesthetics. There's a certain similarity, even though we're worlds apart, like other side of the world.
Yeah,
there's a certain kind of visual sort of similarities in taste, like in the kind of Nordic design and Japanese design. So I mean, we get, I think about 30% of our museum visitors are from outside of Finland, and majority of them are from Japan. And some people visit every year. Some people come back every year. And it isn't just, you know, children, it's adults and older people. I mean, you know, you have people who kind of, men in their 60s and 70s might turn up on their own. They might not even be in a group, but they just come because they find something in it. But I think it's, I think it's a wider, bigger thing than just the books. I think there's a kind of wider cultural sort of synchronicity between two completely different cultures.
Right.
Which is, you know, you'd have to be a kind of expert in Japanese and Finnish cultures to really kind of unpick all of that. Because Finnish kind of brands sell, outside of the Moomin, Finnish brands sell really well in Japan, for example. Which is, you know, and then the Japanese things sell really well here. And, you know, there's a bigger thing. And also I think there's something about the aesthetic itself that really appeals to the Japanese, even though it's a really Finnish look. Kind of the environment that they live in and the Moomin house and everything is very quite recognizably Finnish or Nordic.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful. I mean, you know, we love our Japanese. One of our museum staff is Japanese, so it's amazing to have the kind of a guide who can talk through the Moomins in Japanese. So, and Japanese is one of our main languages, because we have translations, obviously, in the museum.
Right.
One of them is Japanese, because our Japanese guests are so important to us. So,
Yeah. She had such an impact, not only in popular culture, but I do know recently there will be a live action film called Tove about her. It's going to be kind of like a biopic, a biography. How does she also culturally impact Finnish culture and the Nordic countries and the rest of the world?
I think that she was really struggling at her time as a woman artist. So as you know that also what we talked about, the entertainment world and the media business and animation business, they are really kind of man-led businesses and properties. And same thing with the art world in Finland and the Nordics. It was really led by men. And she did this pioneer work to show that a woman can be an artist, illustrator, storyteller, but also a businesswoman, because early on she also started to do merchandising around the Moomins. So I think that was a really kind of, that's why I really admire her for being so gutsy or brave.
Yes.
well, I guess the comic strips kind of, even though they're sort of quite humorous and short little strips, they sort of bring, or they almost like smuggle these ideas into the stories. And obviously the comic strips are more linked to reality, kind of human reality. So they are kind of places like, you know, they travel to the Riviera in France, and they go to a Wild West, I think, in one of them, and they go up in space. So it's more outside the bubble of the Moomin Valley. So I think they kind of, it's almost sort of subtle communication of ideas through kind of humorous and surreal stories, I guess. But there is something about the books and the characters that people can find themselves in, I guess. So, you know, there's all these kind of quizzes, like take the quiz and find out which character you are. So I think there's something identifiable in that. So that's been really, I think that's probably what, you know, what's kept them so relevant, that we can identify on a really personal level and into different characters. So, you know, some people might say, oh, I aspire to be a little Mai, or you know, like somebody like Snufkin is kind of the anti-consumerist person who sort of doesn't believe in ownership. And you know, so there's kind of these sort of, I think there's people really kind of take them personally. So that's what makes them relevant now. You know, it's really hard to kind of, because it's so personal, it's difficult to make kind of generic, you know, declarations as to why they're so important still. Yeah, and it obviously varies from person to person as to what they find in the books. Right. Some people find comfort in a kind of simple lifestyle, and some people find kind of, I don't know, themselves.
Right.
In the books.
In America, and we are much more familiar with Peanuts, Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Dick Tracy, Popeye. We even have a Spider-Man comic strip for a while. We had, you know, Tarzan, Prince Valiant. How is the Moomin comic strips different than maybe other comic strips that we're more familiar with here?
In many ways, of course, but one peculiarity, one interesting thing Jansson had was the use of borders between the panels. She was very inventive then. Like there could be a brush or a toothbrush or a pin or whatever, like a interesting long objects, branches, natural objects. between the borders that they would be involved. Of course, something that the story would include as well, but that kind of creative use she was having. And then one thing that you clearly see in her work as an illustrator and a comic book artist is that she loved to, while at the same time she was being very plain, but then she also enjoyed all sorts of decoration. So she's decorating sometimes the panels with so many flowers or plant motifs, and they wouldn't be necessary for the story always, but artist just puts them there. Oh, they are so wonderful, and yeah, that's what you see in her work. Is love for decoration. Sometimes it bursts up in the panels, but these flowers don't just fit in the panel. But they are still there.
Yeah, that's a really unique way to see something visually different, because comic strips is such a visual medium. So to see something so different really catches your eye, and then you feel immediately drawn to want to read more about it, or read to see what the short story will be, you know, for that time. Who is your favorite character?
I kind of I identify with lots of different aspects of different characters, but I really like Grandpa Grumble, who's he's a minor character in the winter book on November, Moomin Valley in November, because he's just like, oh, you know, I'll forget everything I don't like. So he just edits his life really ruthlessly and just goes, I'm not going to worry about things. I'm going to forget people I don't like. And then towards the end of the book, he sort of decides, oh, it's winter. I'm going to go and hibernate now. So he sleeps for the winter. Like, oh, wonderful. I agree with all of it.
Actually, that's kind of a good way to live life. He's not burdened by negativity or events or people that characters he doesn't necessarily want to crowd his memory.
Well, I think that my favorite character still is Moomin. I have this one mentor who is working with me, wonderful woman who has been working with me maybe for 20 years in creative work. And then when I said that I have an idea about Moomin TV show, and she asked that, wait a minute, that who chose who? Did you choose Moomin, or did Moomin choose you? Because you are definitely like a Moomin troll. And I said that, why? And then she said that, well, you are idealistic, that I believe that world can be changed with good stories. Like Moomin Troll is filled with big emotions. What is like the Moomin Troll, the kind of kindness and everything, and believe that in the goodness of the world. I think that I have the same kind of personality traits, but of course there are dark sides too. Now I'm just mentioning the positive ones, but I think that I'm more like a Moomin Troll.
It changes. I think the whole thing interesting about the characters is how they are, the set, the whole gallery, how interesting they are together. Sometimes I really miss a life of a Womper who's so introvert, who just reads books and sleeps under a boat and doesn't want to talk to anybody, especially the Hemulan, and who just has this wonderful imagination, the stories in his head. I'm talking about the Womper called Toft in Jansson's last novel, Moomin Valley, in November. But today, what I feel like today is Snufkin. It's actually the first time in my life that I dare to say, because I probably admire him so much. But now I really think of Snufkin and just his way of when he sees something beautiful, he writes a poem about a song or paints or something. And then he has it with him.
What is something that you would want to advise for, I guess, American comic, book historians on how we can spread Moomin love here in the United States and try to make it more popular?
Well, one thing that our museum education always does, so we have a little studio in our museum. At the moment we're closed because of Corona, but we're hoping to open in the autumn again. And in the studio we have staff who kind of guide. There's always kind of tasks ready-made, so children can come in and draw comic strips, for example, based on Moomins, or they can make 3D animation. We have short stop animation workshops around sort of last autumn and early spring. They were super popular. So we always kind of go back to the original books and the texts,
Okay.
and then encourage creativity. So this kind of go back to playing, and we really see it in the museum where adult guests kind of go into the work or the studio and think, oh, I'm not going to do anything. And then 2 hours later, they're still there drawing, making, because they can play. Like, there's so many kind of, because playing is not really part of the kind of adult life. And I think that's something that we should take with us, even kind of, in adult life, it's hard to find those spaces, but,
Right.
take that with us and kind of remember creativity and making. You don't have to be good at it. It's just kind of the making, rather than just kind of staring at screens and being passive. Is kind of an active way of kind of thinking and learning.
What is it like to be part of Moomin Legacy? Because now your show is in continuity with 75 years from Tove Jansson's books, comic strips. There was a 90s animation, there's film, and now there's yours.
Yeah, it is really surreal feeling. And I think that it was kind of surprise also, but such an honor to us when Gutsy Animations, that we just founded 3 years ago, got the rights for the Moomin TV for the next 20 years until 2036. So it was really amazing because we were competing against the kind of biggest animation studios and companies. But I think that the kind of my background and roots in the kind of Nordic content, and of course in this nature and in these stories, I think that it made a huge difference. And of course, because I had a wonderful team to work with me, like Oscar-winning director Steve Box and all the wonderful people in Bristol, and production designers that are also Oscar nominated. So I think that the kind of combination of the knowledge of the brand of Moomins and also the wonderful team made us successful.
For the sake of more of an American audience, you have Oscar award-winning Kate Winslet, Rosamund Pike, Taron Egerton, Warwick Davis. What is it like knowing that you have this amazing cast that is voicing these iconic characters?
I think that it was a kind of snowball effect, because I really wanted to find early on, when I had the kind of vision and I did the first kind of wrote the creative structure of the series, I wanted to have the best possible director. And in fact, I first kind of thought about American director. So I kind of went through all kinds of names and people and so on. But then when I met Steve Box, who had also already a love for Moomins, I think that was a really big thing for me. And from there on, we kind of managed to get Kate Winslet to read some of our scripts. So she first, in fact, wanted to do a double role as a Moomin mama and Mrs. Filion. So it was like such a wonderful thing to me. But of course, it all comes to the stories. So if the people love the stories and know the brand and the philosophical side of Moomins, that the values of, respecting the nature, the love and the kindness, and just the braveness and everything what Moomins have, they are so essential right now. And even more after the kind of COVID-19 virus. I think that we need some kind of content that is comforting and brings hope. That even though you don't have the TV series, in fact, you are the #1 YouTube fans in our Moomin official YouTube.
Yes.
So something is happening already, and I'm feeling so kind of happy about it and honored that the US fans have found their way to the Moomins.
Where do you recommend new readers who are not as familiar with the Moomin world to start reading?
If I could decide, I would just, for anybody, to start with Jansson's original world, not the books perhaps. The books and then the comics, because the books are a little bit more serious perhaps, and or they're very playful as well. But perhaps it would be a better way to start with the books, because then the irony and the satire in the comics will open up in a nice way, because they are actually, the comics are ironizing the world of the books as well. So it's kind of, that's why I would move that way. It's more humor than you see more humor in the comics if you start from the books.
Right.
I would start from The Comet in Moominland.
Okay.
Or the very first book, if you really had to decide.
Music plays a huge part, the soundtrack, in your Moomin Valley series. Can you tell us about how you incorporate that in?
Yes, so we have our musical supervisor Virpi Immonen was helping us through to find the right kind of, a little bit like indie artists, but still there are some big names, for example, Mö from Denmark, who has done the kind of theme song, Alma, who is now working with Miley Cyrus and Dua Lipa, and these kind of big names. So these guys, I think that it has been so exceptional to pick the right, more independent, and these kind of artists that would fit into the Moomin world, because we wanted to have also the Moomin score music to be not symphony orchestra, but more like a smaller band that would use kind of interesting instruments to make it kind of more homey and more kind of cozy and comforting and so on. And I think that the music is exceptional in our show, and each and every episode has a special kind of needle drop inside the episode. So that was something that was a huge job as well. And what I'm really happy about, that in the second season we got Taron Egerton to sing. So he has his own love song there, and it's incredible.
Where can we find more of Gutsy Animation and Moomin Valley online?
Well, we have now sold the series after 1 year of its release to 42 countries. And now we are talking about with many kind of SWOT players and so on. So I think that it should be soon worldwide. In these 42 countries, you can find them again from our Gutsy website. Or then through Moomin Official. And I think that most of the series will launch during this fall, so that they are now doing the dubbing work. So I have heard Hebrew, German, Sami, all these languages that we have to approve. So there are a lot of series starting this fall, so hopefully also in your territory.
And we mentioned like the 90s animation, and then now we have your series. How does your series kind of differentiate itself from the 90s one? Because I do know that it is, for my friends in the United Kingdom who are lucky enough to watch it on TV, they, as adults, they love it, and their children also love it. So it seems to be very all ages.
Yes, that's one of the things that we wanted to kind of appreciate in Tove's work. So it wasn't only for the kids. And people, when Tove was still doing her art and telling these stories, everybody was asking that, wait a minute, are these for kids, these books, or are these for adults? And I think that we wanted to do a kind of a prime time co-viewing family audience TV series. And I'm so happy that, for example, in Finland, we have drama 8 p.m. Time slot for Moomins. And it has been the most watched TV series, counting all the international dramas and local dramas in Finland. So it's amazing.
Because it's the 75th anniversary of Moomin, you are putting together an exhibition at the National Museum of Finland. So can you tell us a little bit more about the exhibition, or what you can tell us?
The exhibition will be then a collage of Jansson's original Moomin work, starting from this very early story. And there will be different kinds of spaces and different kinds of atmospheres, and the life values of the different personalities will be shown everywhere. As we know, that it's like a big gallery of the characters in the Moomin world. There are the Moomins, the happy family, the friendly, nature-loving Moomins, and then there is the Sniff, a slightly materialistic figure, and then there is Snufking, the artist, Moomin Valley, and Selijonks, very strange female characters, very interesting ones, I think, Hemulens and so on. All of these personalities, they have their different kind of life views and a different kind of relationship to environment. So,
what is the Moomin Museum have anything planned for the 75th anniversary that you can talk about, unless it's a secret surprise?
Well, we've unfortunately, obviously, we were closed for a few months.
Yeah,
like everywhere, but we're open now, and just from the beginning of July, there's fewer limitations on how many people we can let in, which is good because we've already had queues. But this year we are celebrating the Moomins with a Moomins and the Sea exhibition, which is linked to a fundraising campaign here in the Nordic countries, where Moomin characters and John Nurminen Foundation, which is a kind of foundation that works to protect the Baltic Sea. So they've joined forces with kind of lots and lots of different companies and organizations, and we're trying to raise €1 million to fund the different kind of cleaning and ecological projects around the Baltic Sea. So that's kind of a environmental sort of celebration. And in February we had a Moomin birthday, where in our workshop we made funny hats, and we made bunting and kind of and there was music. So we had a traditional birthday, and now we're kind of just getting back to normal this year. And around Christmas time we always have readings from Moomin books in the museum, and in August we will celebrate Tove Jansson's birthday somehow, but I'm not sure how yet, because we've usually had a garden party, but the garden party is probably not happening this year because of all this, difficulty with, organising big events. So we'll do something else. But so that's on the 9th of August, fans. It's a Sunday this year. So kind of, it's been tricky this year, but we're still kind of celebrating the books as they, 75 years is kind of such a big number.
It is. It is.
And I can't imagine the 100. I mean, you mentioned the 100th birthday. That what will be 100 years of Moomin? Like, I can't even. Yeah, can't imagine it.
Thank you again for taking time of your day to speak with me, and for our 75th anniversary appreciation panel of Moomin here at San Diego Comic-Con. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. It was great to join you. I wish everybody a Moomin-minded life.
Yes. Thank you.
And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so
It's been
much.
fun.
Thank you.